me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we are going to be having our biology classes now. Our topic will be homeostasis. Homeostasis. Has anyone done this topic in their school? In school? Is there anyone who has done this topic before now in their school? Chimamanda, I can't hear you. What did you say?
I said I haven't.
Okay. All right, so we are going to be talking about homeostasis today. Now we all know that the internal environment of our body needs to be maintained. How you know that the blood has pH, the urine has the pH, same thing with almost every other fluid in the body. Now, these fluids have to be maintained at the same pH at all times. Same thing with the water balance. The amount of water in the body should not be allowed to go too low or too high. It could have implications on our health. So that is where homeostasis comes in. So homeostasis looks at how we balance the internal environment, how we keep our internal environment constant at all times. So I hope we can see the picture on the screen very well. So here you see the body of a human being. Now you see the hypothalamus for regulating temperature and osmotic pressure. Then the kidneys maintaining our water balance. You can see that some days you urinate, you produce a lot of urine. Some days you produce a little urine. Then we have blood distributing heat throughout the body so that no one part of the body is hotter than the other part. So as the blood is going around, heat is circulating around the body so that the temperature of the body is uniform. Then you see evaporation of water helps to regulate body temperature. How does water evaporate from our body? When we sweat. Then the pancreas regulates our blood sugar. You know that blood sugar levels should be at a particular level. Once it's too high, someone might end up suffering from one illness or the other, like diabetes, when you have a lot of blood in the um, a lot of sugar in the blood, which will finally seep into the urine. Then we have skeletal muscles contracting and releasing heat. Okay, so what are those things? What are those variables that are kept steady or constant by homeostatic agents or organs? Those variables are one, our body temperature. You can see it beneath here. The fluid balance, that's water balance. Then our blood sugar levels. So you can see the definition of homeostasis is a state of steady internal physical and chemical conditions maintained by living systems. Okay, then down here we have a few of the homeostatic organs. Okay, not all of them. We have blood glucose level rises, pancreas releases insulin, the blood cells. Insulin helps blood cells to take up glucose. That way, it reduces blood glucose levels. And the liver takes up glucose, the blood glucose level declines. By that time, you can say that the body has effectively managed that situation. So the blood glucose level at the end would fall. So that's just simply the illustration of what homeostasis is all about. Now, let's go to the homeostatic organs. Now, we have looked at we've mentioned some organs involved in homeostasis from all we have seen inside this picture. You can even tell some organs that are involved in carrying out homeostasis. Now let's look at them more in depth. Let's look at them in depth. Okay, so there are 4 major parts of the body that are involved in homeostasis. There are 4 major parts of the body involved in homeostasis. What are these parts? Now, these parts are the liver, the kidney, the skin, and endocrine glands. The liver, the skin, the kidney, and the endocrine glands. Now, I'm sure most of us have heard about or looked at excretion in our various schools. We know that the main function of the kidney is to carry out excretion. Now, before we go on, let's talk about what is the basic. Let me ask a few questions. You can go to the chat and answer the question before we go forward. I'll wait for you. So, question number 1, you have to tell me what is the basic unit of the kidney. What is the basic unit of the kidney? Then, question number 2, what does the kidney excrete? Go to the chat and type in your answers. Let me see. I'm waiting for answers. First question is, what is the basic unit of the kidney? Then number 2, what does the kidney excrete? What does it remove from the body? Okay, so I've seen Chukwubike Madagu's answer. He says the kidney, the basic unit is to remove waste or water from the body. As the question answer 2 says, it removes urea, urine from the body. Okay, your second answer is correct. The first one is wrong. Okay, Kamsi says urea. Number 2's answer is urea. Yes, and then Ekenechi Mamanda says the first question is nephron. Sorry, the first answer is nephron. The second one is urea. Very correct. Okay, thank you very much. You can still keep your answers coming in. Oh. Okay, so yes, the basic unit of the kidney is the nephron. So there is a structure in the kidney called the nephron that carries out basic filtration of blood. It filters blood and produces urine. I think you should have done this. If you're in SS3 now, you should have done this in maybe SS2 or 1. So if you do not remember that information, you may need to go back and study on your own. And then maybe you can come with questions in our next Zoom class. So let's talk about the second one. The second one, I said, what does the kidney excrete? The kidney excretes urea, water, and salts. Urea, water, and salts. So all together, all these are the constituents of urine. So when you hear of urine, what you have inside of it is urea, water, and salts. Okay, now let's now go to how does the kidney carry out its function as a homeostatic agent? So when we are talking about kidney in homeostasis, we are not talking about its function in excretion, although that is still part of it. Now, what does the kidney do in homeostasis? One of the function of the kidney is called osmoregulation. Osmoregulation. Osmoregulation simply means the regulation of salt and water to create a balance. So normally our body generally keeps regulating our salt levels and then makes sure that this salt levels balances with the water levels. If the salts in the body become too much, if the salts in the body become too much, what happens? The body that the salt is much compared to the water in the body, then the body must make sure more water has to come into the body so it can decide to reduce the amount of urine you produce by reabsorbing more water back into the body. So we say once the salt content of the blood or the body is high, we say that the osmotic pressure is high. So whenever there is a high osmotic pressure in the body, the next thing the body does to counteract it is to make sure it produces more, or it takes in more water back into the body so that at the end of the day, you are producing less urine that is concentrated. Now, this process does not just happen like that. This process does not just happen like that. It happens with the influence of our hypothalamus. Now, what happens is that once the osmotic pressure is high, the body sends a message to the brain. Now, in the brain, there is a part called the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus now produces a hormone known as ADH. Now, this ADH goes to the urinary tubules. That's the nephron. Within the nephron, we have a structure called the urinary tubules. So there at the urinary tubules, more water is reabsorbed into the body. That way, the salt and water content in the body balances up. There is not too much salt compared to water. And that way the body can work on that is if you take in a lot of water, but most times we may not know that the salt content in our body is now higher than that of the water content. So it is the brain through the hypothalamus that acts the hormone ADH, known as antidiuretic hormone, to go to the kidney tubules and make sure that more water is reabsorbed back into the body instead of going out of the body through urine. I hope we understand this. Okay, so I'm typing this important information within the chat so you can go and copy some of the important things from time to time. Okay, so I've sent that. Okay, so now let's go to other functions of the kidney. So the first function I explained about the kidney is the osmoregulation by the kidney. Now what happens? Okay, let's look at the pH of the blood. The pH of the blood. Now, can anyone go to the chart and tell us what the pH of the blood is? If you know the answer, go to the blood and the chart and tell us what is the pH of the blood. What is Yes, I'm still waiting for the answers. What do we know? We already know the meaning of pH now. The degree of acidity or alkalinity of a substance. Now, the blood has a specific pH that is usually maintained at a specific level. Do we know what this level is? Is the blood alkalinic, or is it acidic, or is it neutral? Any ideas? Okay, so let's go forward. So the pH of blood is actually 7 points. So it's actually between the range of 7.35 to 7.45. So it tends towards being alkalinic. But pH 7 is neutral. So 7.35 to 7.45 is tending towards being alkalinic. Now, how does the body maintain this balance? Make sure that the pH does not go beyond 7 into 8, or even acidic into 6. Now, this function of regulating the blood's pH is carried out by the kidneys. Now, usually at the point of tubular secretion, if you still go back um to your knowledge of formation of urine, there is a point where we have ultrafiltration, there is a point where we have selective reabsorption, and there is a point where we have tubular secretion. Now, tubular secretion is the last point before the urine is formed. Now, at that point of tubular secretion, the body can do any of two things if the blood is um acidic. First, if it's acidic, it means that the hydrogen ions are much more than the hydrogen carbonate ions. So what the body does is it will excrete more hydrogen ions in the urine. it excretes more hydrogen ions in the urine. In that way, the hydrogen ions, which causes the blood to be acidic, will be removed from the blood. Now, on the reverse, if the blood is becoming alkalinic, what does the body do? The kidney excretes more hydrogen carbonate ions. The kidney excretes more hydrogen carbonate ions. By so doing, it returns back to its normal pH range. So that is how the body is able to maintain a constant um, blood pH. So these two functions, maintaining osmoregulation and then the acid-base balance, is done by the kidneys. So those are the only things the kidney does when it comes to um, homeostasis. And of course, removal of nitrogenous waste is still part of it, because if nitrogenous waste like the urea increases in the body, then the internal environment of the body cannot be steady or constant. Okay, so those are the three ways the kidney tries to make sure that the internal environment of the body remains constant. Now we'll go to the second one, the liver. I'm trying to upload the slide. I don't know. Let's just keep our hands crossed while we're doing what we're doing. So the second homeostatic agent organ is the liver. Now, what does the liver do? How does it help to carry out homeostasis? First of all, let's talk about where is the liver located. In our bodies, where can we find the liver? Any ideas? Where can we find the liver? Is it near the intestines? Is it near the bladder? Where can we find the liver? Okay, I've not seen any answers though. I don't know. I said, where can we find the liver? That is just try to tell me the position of the liver with respect to other structures or organs inside the body. Is it close to the heart, or maybe to the lungs, or to the intestine? Okay, so I'm trying to check your answers. I've seen Chibi wrote something. It's wasting time. Okay, okay. Kamsi says the top side of the abdomen. Okay. Ugoma says the abdominal cavity. Okay, Ruth says right side of the body below the ribs. Okay, I think you tried. So it's found on top of the stomach. It is found on top of the stomach, directly beneath the diaphragm. That's where you can find. That's where you can find the liver. It's one of the largest organs in the body, but it's not the largest because we still have the skin, which covers the whole of the body. But it's a large organ in the body. Now, with respect to the stomach, I said it's on top of the stomach, it's close to the pancreas. Then, of course, next to it, you have the small gallbladder, that greenish looking small bag that contains a fluid that is bitter. That's the gallbladder containing the bile. Okay, so let's look at how does the liver function. Now, we are not going to look at only the homeostatic properties or functions of the liver. We are going to look at so many things that the liver does, almost all the functions, because this is the only topic where the liver is touched in biology. At least the kidney has been explained before now in excretion, if you have done excretion before now. But for now, the liver is the first, this might be the first time you're hearing about the liver. So what does the liver do for us? Number one, the liver carries out protein metabolism. The liver carries out protein metabolism. Now, this note is purely on homeostasis. So you see this the slide that we have now is related to the liver. So these other ones you might need to write down what you're learning. So the liver carries out protein metabolism. How does it do this? Now, after digestion of proteins, the body produces, or the body breaks down all proteins into amino acids. All these amino acids will be taken to the liver. Now, inside the liver, the amino acids will be built into different proteins. Our body needs different proteins, some enzymes to be able to work well. So the liver does this job. Now, once it's done with using the amino acid, any excess one remaining is now changed into what we call urea. So that's the second, another function of the liver under protein metabolism. Every excess amino acid that is not used up by the liver is converted by a process we call deamination. By a process called deamination, the amino acid will be changed from being an amino acid into being another molecule called urea. It is this urea that will be taken to the kidney and removed as urine. Now, another thing the proteins do is to regulate blood glucose. Sorry, the liver. Another function of the liver is to regulate blood glucose levels, like you can see here. Now, these blood glucose levels is regulated together with two important hormones, insulin and glucagon. Okay, so look at the first slide, the red slide. It says after a meal, glucose rises. Now the pancreas detects high blood glucose. Now what does it do? The beta cells in the pancreas will release the hormone called insulin. Insulin asking cells to absorb glucose is to help mop up the glucose so that the blood sugar level will reduce. Then the liver converts any excess glucose remaining into glycogen for storage. the result is that the blood glucose falls back to normal. The result is blood glucose falls back to normal. So you finish eating your food, your blood glucose level will increase, especially if you've eaten a meal rich in carbohydrates. Now, that sends a signal to the pancreas to start producing insulin. Insulin will help cells to take up more glucose. Now, any other one that is remaining at the end of the day is now converted into glycogen for storage. Maybe before now, you've heard that the difference between animal cells and plant cells is that animal cells convert excess glucose to glycogen, but plant cells convert excess glucose to what? Starch. So this is the liver. This is what the liver does, but it does it with the help of insulin. Now, between meals, when glucose levels falls, you've eaten after some hours, your blood glucose levels has come down. What happens to make sure the blood glucose level rises? If not, you may get so tired and weak because your cells will not have enough glucose to produce energy through respiration. So when the pancreas detects low blood glucose, the alpha cells release glucagon, which is another hormone, into the blood. Now, glucagon signals the liver to act. The liver converts stored glycogen back into glucose. The result is that blood glucose rises back to normal. So you see that the blood glucose levels are regulated by the liver. So imagine the liver is not working. What happens to your blood glucose? It can go haywire. It can increase more than it should, or it can reduce more than it, or it can reduce less to less levels than it should. And all of them can have um, bad consequences for the health of the person. So the two hormones involved in blood glucose regulation is insulin and glucagon. Okay. Then let's look at functions of the liver that are not in this slide. Now, under the liver detoxification happens in detoxification. In detoxification body, it changes it to a harmless form. The drug on its own might be harmful. The liver changes it to a harmless form that's in such a way that it does not affect your body negatively. And sometimes that harmless form might also be the active form that will work well in your body. And sometimes we eat food with preservatives that could be dangerous to our body. It's also the liver that will change these preservatives to less harmful forms. So the liver does so much for us. Then we also have bile production. Of course, we know that the liver produces bile. What does bile do? In which system does the bile work in? Now, the bile works in what? The digestive system. The bile is produced to emulsify fats. What does this mean? You know, fats usually is solid or somehow, I don't know. Fats are solid, yes, at room temperature. So bile mixing with fat will change it into droplets, liquid droplets that can now easily be digested by enzymes like the lipase. So bile production is carried out by the liver. Then storage of vitamins and minerals is carried out by the liver too. The liver stores important vitamins, mostly the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K. It is the job of the liver to store these vitamins. Vitamins like B and C that are water-soluble vitamins are not stored in the body generally. You need to keep replenishing the levels of these vitamins by eating them often. Then, storage of blood. The liver contains a lot of blood vessels, and within it, you find a lot of blood. So a lot of blood is stored inside your liver. Then inactivation of hormones. Now, when hormones have been used up and they are no longer needed, for example, something like the adrenaline has been used up and then it's no longer required to be used in the body, its effect should not continue to be experienced by the body. It is an organ like the liver that changes it to its inactive form so that it stops working. Okay, and then finally, all these functions of the liver that we have mentioned, it actually leads to production of a lot of heat. It leads to the production of a lot of heat. So the liver produces a lot of heat through its metabolic activities, and this heat is now moved around the body through blood to bring about temperature regulation, or rather uniform temperature around the body. So this is how. So if we are going to look at the homeostatic function of the liver, its most important function is blood glucose regulation and production of urea deamination. Those are the two ways that it helps to maintain a constant internal environment in the body. Imagine if the liver does not change excess amino acids to urea. Of course, the kidney cannot excrete amino acid, it must excrete urea. So that way, it would cause problems within the body. So do we have any questions so far? Do we have any questions so far?
Ma, what are some of those vitamins you mentioned that can be stored by the liver?
Okay. The vitamins stored by the liver are vitamins A, D, E, and K. Did you hear
Yes, I did. Thank you.
A, D, E, and K? I was trying to type it, but I don't think it appeared. I was trying to write in the chat, but I'll write it now again. Okay, so I have a few questions. I have a few questions I'll put in the chat. Then I'll be expecting your response from what we have done so far about the liver. Okay, so my two questions are, which two hormones help the liver carry out blood glucose regulation? Which two hormones help the liver carry out blood glucose regulation? They are in the chart. Then the second question is, what is deamination? What is deamination? So let me see your answers, your interesting answers. Start typing. Okay, so Njoku Goma is correct. She says deamination is when excess amino acid is converted to urea in the kidney. Thank you. That's a very correct answer. Okay, yes, the hormones according to Opera Bryan is insulin and glucagon. Beautiful. Okay, I think there's another person still trying to answer there. Okay, Kamsi says glycogen and adrenaline. No, 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 no. The answers are insulin and glucagon. If I don't know if I forgot to mention that these two hormones are produced by the pancreas. Insulin and glucagon, they are both produced by the pancreas. But where do they work? They work in the liver. They carry out their job, their work together with the liver. They work hand in hand with the liver, but they are not produced by the liver. They are produced by the pancreas. So, Kamsi, please, that answer is not correct. The answer is insulin and glucagon. Okay, so let's go forward. So we've talked about blood glucose concentration, how it's regulated, blood pH. We've also talked about water and electrolyte balance, how they are regulated. That I'm looking at these variables, this slide on the screen now. Variables the body regulates. So we've seen how the second, the third, and the fourth are regulated. Remember, the second one is regulated by the liver. The blood pH, you can see the level 7.35 to 7.45 is regulated by the kidney. Then the water and electrolytes balance, that's water and salt balance, osmoregulation is still done by the kidney. Now let's look at how body temperature is regulated. How is body temperature regulated? That's thermoregulation. That is what we call thermoregulation. Now, thermoregulation is carried out by the skin. Thermoregulation is carried out by the skin together with the hypothalamus. You know, I've mentioned the hypothalamus before when we're talking about water and salt regulation. So the hypothalamus helps us, is a part of the brain that is responsible for regulating um, salt and water balance, osmoregulation. But it is also still responsible for regulating temperature, body temperature. So normally, what's our normal body temperature? Our normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. Now, the organ in the body that is responsible directly for regulating our body temperature is the skin. So that is why if you are mentioning homeostatic agents, you mention the skin, because the skin helps us in temperature regulation. Now, once there is a change in the body's temperature, of course, before now, you know we are warm-blooded animals. Now, warm-blooded animals, they work hard to see that they maintain a particular body temperature, unlike cold-blooded animals. Cold-blooded animals simply take up the temperature of their environment. For example, the fish and the amphibians, those two are cold-blooded animals. So what they do is wherever they find themselves, which is mostly in aquatic habitats, they take the temperature of the water where they find themselves. But you see, mammals, birds, and reptiles, they always try to maintain a constant body temperature, which for us humans is 37 degrees Celsius. If you go to other mammals that live in water, like maybe the whales, the dolphins, the seals, they will try to maintain a constant body temperature. They will not take the temperature of the water. So because of this, they need to keep carrying out what we call thermoregulation. So what happens if the body temperature rises? Now, first of all, your skin, the sensors in your skin, within the skin, we have what we call sensory nerve endings. These sensory nerve endings can pick up different stimulus. We have sensory nerve endings for pain, we have for pressure, we have for temperature, we have for touch. So the one for temperature, we pick up the stimulus and transmit the information to the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus then tells the skin what to do. Now, if the body temperature is rising more than 37 degrees Celsius, the hypothalamus detects this rise and it starts signaling the cooling responses, or what we call the heat loss center. So within the brain, there is this set of actions that are carried out by the heat loss center. The heat loss center will try as much as possible to return the body's temperature back to normal. So how does it do that? First, blood vessels dilate. We call that vasodilation. Now, in vasodilation, the blood vessels near the skin surface will start dilating. When this happens, a lot of blood will start flowing into the skin. Now, this blood now is carrying this hot temperature that the body has. Now, it will lead to the sweat glands being activated and sweat will start being produced. Now, once sweat is produced, evaporation of the sweat from the skin surface will cool the skin. With that, the body loses its temperature, so that the temperature can fall backward towards 37 degrees Celsius. Other things that the body can do is to decrease its metabolic rate. A lot of metabolic activities happening inside the body can make the body's temperature to rise. So when the body consciously starts shutting down some metabolic activities, the amount of temperature produced will reduce and then the body can lose some heat. Then another thing that can happen is lowering of hairs. The hairs of the skin can lower. With that, some of the heat is lost from the surface of the skin. Then for animals, behavioral changes that they can carry out is they can move to places where it is shaded. If you see desert animals, when the temperature of the environment is very high, they'll go to the shade and stay there. That's a behavioral change, a way of regulating their body's temperature, because they know that being out there in the sun will increase their body's temperature. So you see them that during the daytime when the sun's heat is very high, they will stay away from the sun. They will stay in shaded areas. And when it's evening and it's cooler, they can now come out and move around looking for food. So these are all the things the body does when the temperature rises. Vasodilation, sweating, um, decreased metabolic rates, and then behavioral changes like staying in shaded areas. Then next, what happens if body temperature falls? You enter into a place, it's too cold. Maybe you're in an AC room, you start feeling cold. What does the body do? So first of all, the thermoreceptors will detect this drop in the body's temperature. Then it will signal the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus will signal what we call the heat gain center. The heat gain center should look for ways to make the body feel warmer or hotter. So what are the things the heat gain sensor will do? Number one, the blood vessels will constrict. The blood vessels constrict, then less blood will flow to the surface of the skin. That way, the body retains more heat. Instead of losing the heat out of the sweat pores, the body retains more heat. Then the skeletal muscles will start shivering. Now, this shivering generates heat for the body. The shivering generates heat for the body, making the body warmer. Then another thing you can do is increase metabolic rates. That is, more metabolic activities will start happening in the body to generate more heat. Then the hairs on the body can be raised too. Raising the hairs on the body will help to increase the body's temperature. Then lastly, for the behavior, most mammals, they want to huddle together, they'll come together. You see that in penguins, when the temperature of their bodies is getting low, they'll huddle together. That is, many of them will come together to keep themselves warm. So that huddling is also is a behavioral change to help them keep their body's temperature from falling beyond the normal body temperature. So the result is that the body temperature rises back towards 37 degrees Celsius. Okay, so I hope we understand what I just explained. So those are the ways that the body carries out homeostasis. Now, I've not even talked about hormones. Hormones are another large topic on their own. Hormones are another large topic on its own, on its own. So we have looked at 3 homeostatic organs. We've looked at the kidney, the liver, and the skin. Now, I take it that you have done the skin in school, so I didn't talk about the description of the skin, like how many layers of the skin we have, the functions of the skin, and the parts of the skin. So we are just discussing the skin as a homeostatic agent. But if you need us to go through all the parts of the skin, you may need to say something so that I can know. If you know you've not done it in school at all, let me know so that we can do it now. You can look at all the parts of the skin and its functions. Just that it is not in the note, that's the only thing. So the question is, have you done the skin in school? So if you have not done it in school, do you want us to do it now or we should leave it for later? Do you want us to do it now or leave it for later? There's more than one person should answer so that it won't look like only one person is dictating what we do. I should get 3 answers if you want us to do it now. Okay. Okay, only 2 years, so, and 1 later. Okay, another yes. So we are going to do the skin now. So the next 30 minutes we'll be looking at the skin. and then we'll round up homeostasis. Like I said, we are going to do the hormones in another lesson or class. Okay, so the structure of the skin, like I said before now, I said the liver is one of the largest organs in the body. Then I also mentioned that of of course it's not the largest. The one that is the largest is the skin. Why? Because the skin covers the whole of our body. From our face down to the feet is covered with the skin. So it cannot be larger than the liver cannot be larger than it. So the largest organ in the human body is the skin. Now the skin is made up of two layers, the epidermis and the dermis. The outer layer is the epidermis and the inner layer is the dermis. So the part you are not seeing now on your skin is the dermis. This part you're seeing now is part of the outer layer. That's the epidermis. Now let's look at the parts of the epidermis. Now the parts of the epidermis are the first one on top, as this one you're seeing that contains your hair, your sweat spores. We call it the conified layer. The conified layer. Now, on this layer, we have a lot of dead cells. Then we have one special substance we call keratin that is found in this layer. It makes the skin waterproof, flexible, and tough. The keratin makes the skin waterproof, flexible, and tough. Now, under this conified layer you have is a granular layer. The granular layer is made up of cells that will later on replace the conified layer. Remember, I said the conified layer is made up of dead cells. So what it means is that taking your bath, as you're taking your bath every day, you're wiping away or you're washing away the dead cells. So the ones from the granular layer will now be replacing the conified layer. Now, after the granular layer, the next one is the Malpighian layer. Malpighian, Malpighian, Malpighian. So the Malpighian layer is made up of actively dividing cells. They are always producing new cells. So it's these new cells that they push up to the granular layer, and the granular layer will push up to the conified layer. Now, in addition to being made up of actively dividing cells, these Malpighian cells have what we call melanin. Remember, I've mentioned keratin before. Now I'm mentioning melanin. Melanin in dark people gives us our color. But apart from giving us color, it protects us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. So it protects us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. So that is the function of the melanin in our skin. So with that, we go to the dermis. So mention the three parts of the epidermis. Okay. Now let's look at. Okay, I should spell the parts of the skin. Okay, Chibi came. Please give me a minute. Let me spell the parts of the skin for him. So we have epidermis, cornified, granular, and Malpighian. So the dermis is made up of so many other things that we will look into now. So we have within the dermis we have hair follicles, we have sweat gland, we have sebaceous gland, we have sensory nerve endings. Sensory nerve endings. I've mentioned them before. I said that these sensory nerve endings are the ones that pick up stimuli from the skin, like touch, pain, pressure, and so on and forth. Then we also have fatty layer. Some books will say this is a third layer, the fatty or the adipose tissue, the fatty layer or adipose tissue. But it's not necessarily a third layer. Then we also have blood capillaries. The blood capillaries bring in blood rich in food, oxygen, and the rest of them. Okay, so those are the parts of the skin. Okay, so let's go back. So let's now look at the dermis. Now, the dermis, I've already mentioned the parts, the blood capillaries, the hair follicle, the sebaceous gland, the sweat gland, the sensory nerve endings, and the fatty layer. So let me just give their functions. The hair follicle. The hair follicle is the part, it's just the deep pit that produces the hair, those different hairs you have on your body. They start from the hair follicle. Now, close to the hair follicle, we have this sebaceous gland. The job of the sebaceous gland is to produce an oily substance called sebum. sebum, sebum. This oily substance keeps your body or keeps the skin oily, waterproof, and it prevents dust and microorganisms from gaining access into the body. Then, close to this hair follicle, we have erector muscles. Sorry, these erector muscles determine whether the hair is lowered on the body or the hair rises on the body. And we've explained how the hair rising and falling on the body helps in thermoregulation. I said if your body temperature rises, one of the things your body can do to bring your temperature back to normal is to lower your hairs. Then if the temperature falls and you want the temperature to increase, one of the things the body can do is to raise the hair. So it is this erector muscle that will lower the hair or raise the hair, as the case might be. Then the sweat glands. If you look at the structure of the skin, like I said, I didn't prepare for the skin structure and function. We're just talking about its thermoregulation function. So we would have seen the structure of the skin. Now, the skin has there's this coiled tube that moves from the surface of the skin down, and then it folds so many times. That's what we call the sweat gland. The sweat gland is responsible for producing sweat. So for those times when your body temperature becomes too high, one of the things your body can do is to start producing sweat. Now, production of sweat reduces the body's temperature. As the body starts sweating, the evaporation of that sweat will cool your skin and the body's temperature will fall. Then we also have sensory nerve endings. I've explained what those ones do. They pick stimulus from the environment. If someone touches you now, it is because the receptors on the skin can pick up that touch. Same thing with pressure, same thing with temperature, and many other sensory nerve endings that we have. If we have the picture, I don't know, I can't go from here and start searching for it. Would have gotten the picture of the skin, and then I'll show you what the sensory nerve endings are so that you understand what it looks like. It's one thing to know these things, but you don't know what it looks like. Some of these sensory nerve endings, some will be on the surface, some will be under. So their distances differ, or the location differs on the skin. Then lastly, under, we have a deposit of fat, which we call the adipose tissue or fatty layer. Now, what does this adipose tissue do? It helps to keep our bodies warm. It helps to keep our bodies warm. So for those times, for people that have a lot of fatty deposits, you see that when the weather is cold, they will not complain, they'll feel warm. But if you do not have a lot of deposit of fat in the body, you might feel cold easily during the cold weather. All right, so now let's look at the functions of the skin. Now, from what we have said, you can see that one of the functions of the skin is to protect the body. To protect the body, like I mentioned, I said melanin protects us from the sun's rays, UV rays. Then I also said keratin. Keratin is tough and waterproof, so it also protects our skin. So normally the skin acts as a barrier so that microorganisms cannot easily move into the body, and any other substance cannot easily move into the body. So the skin generally protects us. Then two, sensitivity or irritability. The skin helps us to feel. The skin helps us to feel. How does it help us to feel? Why does it help us to feel? Because it contains lots of sensory nerve endings. These sensory nerve endings are responsible for picking up any stimulus. Sensitivity is defined as the ability of an organism to respond to changes in stimuli. So this stimuli usually comes from the outside most times. So the ability of your skin to pick up touch, pick up changes in temperature, changes in pressure on the body tells us that the skin is a sense organ. So it carries out sensitivity. Then the third function of the skin is this thermoregulation. It regulates our body's temperature. Then the fourth function of the skin is that it can produce vitamin D. It can produce vitamin D when exposed to early morning sunlight. So the process of production of vitamin D can happen in the skin when it is exposed to early morning sunlight. So in the absence of early morning sunlight, the skin cannot produce vitamin D. So those are the four functions of the skin. Do we have any questions on this? Any questions? Let us know. Mm. Okay, in the absence of any question, I'll ask my own question. So, in the absence of any question, I'll ask a few questions. Okay, so I'll go to the chat and type them, then you write the answer, the reply to the question. So what homeostatic function does the skin carry out? So that's the first question. What homeostatic function does the skin carry out? You'll send your replies and let me see. It carries out thermoregulation. Very good. From roots, it carries out thermoregulation. Okay, so what about others? The kidney and the liver, what homeostatic functions do they carry out? So if you're giving me the answer, give me for the kidney separate and for the liver separate. Don't put it together. And please, others, can you answer? Some people have not been saying anything. You've not been answering any question. There are some people I don't see saying anything at all. Maybe I should call names. Okay, so Adeze has not said anything. Fami Roju has not said anything. Manuel. Kenechukwu, I don't think you've said anything. Then Chinyere and Victory. Give answers. Let me be sure you are engaged in what we are doing. The liver stores blood. The liver stores blood. No, it's not a homeostatic. It's a function. This is a function of the liver. Chibike, this is a function of the liver. It's not a homeostatic function. Why is it not a homeostatic function? Because it is not in any way trying to create a steady environment inside the body, a steady internal environment. So the functions we call homeostatic functions are those ones that create a steady internal environment. Always remember these words, steady or constant. You can use steady, you can use constant. Steady or constant internal environment. So we're not talking about the external, we're talking about the internal. So Chibikim, the answer is not very correct. Okay, Ruth says the liver regulates blood glucose level. Very correct. So what about the kidney? What about the kidneys? What do they do? Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't see all these messages. Okay. Chimamanda says kidney osmoregulation, correct. Liver regulates blood glucose, Kamsi, correct. Chinyere, the liver helps maintain blood glucose levels and regulates the chemical composition of the blood. It does not regulate the chemical. Okay, can say that, but regulates blood glucose level is more straight to the point than for you to say regulates chemical composition of the blood. It's too ambiguous. Yeah, that means you're saying so many things at the same time. Kevichu says the kidney helps in osmoregulation. Correct. The kidney maintains water and salt balance and removes metabolic waste from the body. Very correct, Chinyere. Ugoma, the liver detoxifies. That's not a homeostatic function. It's just a function of the liver. You know, when I was explaining these things, I tell you the ones that are homeostatic, and I tell you that these are just the other functions of the liver. The liver detoxifies is a function of the liver, but it's not a homeostatic function of the liver. Kidney waste removal is correct. That is a homeostatic function. Liver detoxification is not correct. Emmanuel, liver detoxification is not correct as a homeostatic function. Remember, that's the question I asked. What's the homeostatic function of the liver and the kidney? Okay, Brian, kidney osmoregulation. Kamsi, kidney remove excess metabolic waste. Correct. These two answers are correct. Okay. Thank you very much. Seems we understood. And those that didn't understand, please correction. The correction is that the homeostatic function of the liver is regulation of blood glucose level. And you can also add deamination, which is conversion of amino acids to urea. You can add that as part of its work as a homeostatic organ. Then for the skin, I said the homeostatic function is thermoregulation. You see that protection I mentioned, production of vitamin D, sensitivity, all those ones are not homeostatic functions. They are just other functions of the skin. The homeostatic function of the skin is thermoregulation. Then for kidney, the kidney's homeostatic function is one, removal of nitrogenous waste like urea from the body, osmoregulation, which means water and salt balance, and then blood blood pH regulation. Blood pH regulation. So we have that in the front page, variables of that the body regulates. Variables that the body regulates. So these are the 4 things that are regulated in homeostasis. Okay, so do we have any question? Question time. We have 10 minutes to the end of the class. Question time. You can put your question in the chat. I'll look at it and answer it. Any question, please take it to the chat. I'll answer. Maybe there's a word you've heard me say that you don't understand. Let me know. Okay, so we have one. What is hypothalamus? Chibikem is asking, what is the hypothalamus? I said the hypothalamus is found in the brain. The hypothalamus is found in the brain. And what is the function of this hypothalamus? The hypothalamus is the center that usually stimulus are sent to, that will now take a response when we talk about thermoregulation and when we talk about osmoregulation. So the hypothalamus comes into play when you are looking at how does the body regulate water and salt balance. We said it is the hypothalamus that will make or produce ADH, antidiuretic hormones, so that more water can be reabsorbed into the body instead of being passed out as urine. Your body can take in more water to regulate the salt and water balance. Then in the case of the skin, we said when the skin picks up stimulus that maybe the body's temperature is becoming too high or too low, it's the hypothalamus that the information is taken to. The skin receptor, those sensory nerve endings in our skin, we take it to the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus will now start working, either calling on the heat gain center or the heat loss center to work to make sure that the body's temperature returns to normal. And the next question is, what's the Malpighian layer? That thing is Malpighian layer. That's MAL. There is no I. Then PIGHIAN. So there is, you mistakenly put an extra I after the L. The Malpighian layer is the third layer within the epidermis. The Malpighian layer is the third layer within the epidermis. I said the epidermis is the outer layer of the skin. The outer layer of the skin. Now, when you still go to that outer layer, it's still made up of 3 layers. The conified one, which is what you are seeing on your body right now, made up of dead cells. Then under this conified one, you have a granular one. Then after that granular layer, you have the Malpighian layer. This Malpighian is always dividing, producing new cells. And within that layer, the cells there contain a pigment called melanin that protects your body from ultraviolet rays of the sun. So I hope I've understood now. You've understood it. Any other question? Okay, so we have, okay, thank you. You understand it, she became. So yes, is there any other question from any other person? Let's know. Is there something confusing you about homeostasis? Let's know. So we have 5 minutes. Let's use it well. So the thick layer of fats, while I'm still waiting for questions, let me ask mine. The thick layer of fat under the skin is called what? The thick layer of fat under the skin is called what? And what is the function of that thick layer of fat? The question is, what is the thick layer of fat under the skin called? And what is the function of that thick layer of fat? Okay, so we have two answers. Yes, fatty layer, root and Kamsi, correct? Then what's the function? What is its function? Why is it there? What is the function of the fatty layer? Remember, I said it's also called adipose tissue or adipose layer. So if you see that word, adipose layer, or even subcutaneous fatty layer, we are still talking about this same fatty layer, subcutaneous fatty layer or adipose layer. We are talking about the same thing. So I'm waiting for answers. What is the function of the fatty layer? Okay, no, Kamsi, it doesn't produce fat. The fatty layer, yeah. Okay, someone said, Brian says an energy store. Okay, but its position under the skin is mainly to keep our body warm. Yes, Victory got the answer correct. Only Victory's answer is correct. It helps to keep our body warm. That's the reason it's there under the skin. Okay, so we've gotten to the end of our class today. So thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. And I'll get to put the slides on the Google Classroom later so that you can get to follow. So thank you and bye. See you next time.